Welcome to Chicken Reviews with Tim. Welcome to lesson 6 of our series on the parables of Jesus. We've got another great night of discussion ahead of us. Most of our lessons are written with the help of a lecture series from R.C. Sproul. However, this parable was a special request and R.C. didn't do this one. So, these lessons are all written with assistance from a theologian named R.T. France. I'm not quite sure why theologians use their first and middle initials, but it seems to be what makes them legit. So my name is T.D. Wolf, and here we go on our lesson on the parable of the workers in the vineyard, found in Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 16. Let's dig in. For the kingdom of God is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into the vineyard. And going out about the third hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and said to them, "You go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give you." So they went. Going out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour, he did the same. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing. And he said to them, "Why do you stand here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You go into the vineyard too." And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first." And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Now when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne all the burden of the day and the scorching heat." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last worker as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity?" So the last will be first, and the first will be last. This parable was one that always left me a little confused, and honestly did up until I was writing this lesson for tonight. It never made sense to me because it felt weird that I understood the first worker's reaction more than I did Jesus' explanation. I know that that's the wrong answer since Jesus is the right answer, but that's just how it worked out in my thought process, right? These men worked a full day and were paid 1 denarius. Now, that was what was a fair wage, but what didn't make sense was that the men who started working at noon and 3 and even 5 o'clock, they all got paid the same wage, even though they did drastically different amounts of work. It's not that I didn't understand Jesus' perspective or his explanation. It's just that I connected with the first workers' responses. I'd have been mad if I was in their situation, and I didn't like that I understood their perspective rather than Jesus's, right? And I don't think that I'm alone in that response. A lot of you are like me, having been raised in Christian homes, having known Christ our whole lives. I think that makes it fair to assume that we can easily associate with these first workers, meaning that we came to know Christ, we started working in the vineyard early on. It's never been that I'm not grateful for this denarius that I get. It just doesn't seem to make sense that those who came late to the party get the same amount. But I think that's the point. See, the thing is that I always read this parable from my perspective, which is pretty normal because I am myself. But the point of the story was never meant to be about the first group of workers. They made it about themselves when they got angry, but they were never the main characters. The story is about the owner of the vineyard. It's meant to show us about the kingdom of heaven and about the character of God. And if you look from the human perspective, yeah, it's totally unfair. It's not fair that the same wage is paid to people who worked drastically different periods. But that's the point. God's love doesn't play by our rules. It doesn't mean that he loves the first group less or the second group more. They both received the same wages. It shows us that no matter what we do, God will still love us abundantly. It's both a reminder that there's nothing that we can do to stop God from loving us, as we see him literally going out into the town to find more workers, to bring them back to his vineyard. And also a reminder that there's nothing that we can do to earn more of God's grace. There's no extra hours that we can put in to earn more favor from him. And when you look at it from that perspective, that's pretty great. Let's talk about that.